Welcome to Screen Chat, live from the Media Hub on RiotRadio.ca. I'm your host, Justin, and today we have a really fun and great episode prepared for you guys today. As you can tell from that title card and maybe these figures in front of you, today is all about Smallville. We're calling this the Smallville Take, live from the Media Hub on RiotRadio.ca. Today, behind the scenes, I have Evan and Kent teching the show. Thank you guys so much for being here. And also shout out to the Chick Chatter girls, Izza and Chris. You guys are in the studio as well. So let's go, bro. Yes. Shout out to them. So yeah, as usual, Screen Chat is your show all about the latest Marvel movies, DC Comics, Star Wars adaptations, and much, much more. But today, it's all about one show. To me, the greatest superhero show of all time, Smallville. Now, you know what? This is, like I said, it's the greatest show of all time for superheroes, and it's my personal favorite show ever. So of course I could really just talk about it whenever I'd want to. But the significance about today's episode is that earlier this week on October 16th was actually the 23rd anniversary of Smallville. So way back in 2001. I wasn't even a little youth back then because I wasn't even born, that's crazy. They say I'm an unk, but I wasn't even born when Smallville debuted on the CW all the way back in 2001. And this was, I guess, to me, at least, a revolutionary time for superhero media, because I just think at this time, Marvel was kind of hitting again with their whole Spider-Man universe. The X-Men universe was developing, but I don't really think DC had something to go band for band until they dropped Smallville. And yeah, season 1 was just peak for me. This is such an iconic shot here of Clark Kent with that spray-painted S and the kryptonite necklace in the cornfield, tied up by the bullies as a scarecrow. The Smallville tradition there. And yeah, honestly, for me, with a lot of other superhero fans, especially DC fans, this image just brings back so much nostalgia. So today I did want to talk about the earlier episodes and seasons of Smallville, as well as, I guess, not too deep into the mids and the second half of the show, just because I was saying to Kent before, I'm it started 23 years ago, but it also only ended 13 years ago. So I don't know if I want to do a full review on 10 full seasons of Smallville today. I would love that, but that would take way longer than an hour. So I did want to focus on different characters, actors, storylines, I should say, and just moments that stuck out to me from the earlier seasons, as well as touching upon the latter stages and what they were able to do for the CW verse and beyond that. So yeah, starting off from the brink, we saw him earlier, Tom Welling. He was the new Superman on the block. But what's cool about his adaptation as Superman is that he was really Clark Kent. And I say this because, it doesn't look it there, but he was a 9th grader. This was Clark Kent starting high school. And it was cool because for me, when I watched this as a young kid, I was at the back end of middle school. So when I fully sat down and watched Smallville again for the second time, but I guess the first time to really understand the show and what it was the message it was sending, I was in and around Clark Kent's age in this. So I really enjoyed Tom Welling's adaptation. Obviously, we'll dive into it a bit more, but yeah, he was the latest actor to play Superman. But like I mentioned, he was taking on the teenage Clark Kent role, something that we don't see a lot these days. And I say that because following Clark Kent, we did get Brandon Reeve, and say what you want about him, but his movies were definitely not teenage Clark Kent. We also later on got Henry Cavill, and then more recently we got Tyler Hoechlin. Also, various voice actors such as Jack Quaid would voice him. But in terms of playing Clark Kent, teenage Superman, I think Tom Welling is definitely the most notable, and in my opinion, the best at it. Now today I'm 21, so I'm not let's say fresh out of high school, but I'm still young enough to say that he is my favorite Superman, because I guess other adaptations that I mentioned, they're much older than me. Tyler Hoechlin specifically is a husband with kids as Superman, so I can't necessarily relate to that as much as I used to relate to Clark Kent in high school. So I guess still to this day, I don't even think it's a hot take, but that's my GOAT. That's my Superman right there. So yeah, like I said, we'll dive back to him in a bit. But his counterpart that was playing Lex Luthor was actually played by Michael Rosenbaum, who was also voice acting for DC at this time as well. And yeah, Michael Rosenbaum was Lex Luthor, and the way that this dynamic worked was pretty cool. I did enjoy him as Lex Luthor there. That's his iconic pose. To me, he is the best Lex Luthor as well. You'll hear that a lot about these adaptations of characters, by the way, just letting you guys know. And yeah, he was really good because he wasn't a bad guy at the start, and I can't even say he was an anti-hero. He was just a genuine good guy. All he wanted was validation and to win over Clark Kent as a friend after he again, we'll spin back to it a bit later on, but committed a crime against him, and there was like no hard feelings, and it was like, okay, cool, I just want to be your friend. And one thing that I do really like about Michael Rosenbaum is that I've actually met him as well. So he was at a convention a couple years ago now, and I had the pleasure of meeting him. So I did bring, I brought this Funko Pop that I do have signed, and I was saying to Evan momentarily, it was kind of sacrilegious that I even brought this out of my house. On the pop, he did write, "I am the villain of the story," which is a very iconic quote from Smallville. And then, like, you know, we had a great conversation, and then, like, bro just took the pop at the end and then put a heart. I'm like, oh, thanks, gang. I appreciate you. You know, the vibes. But yeah, it was pretty cool because, you know, I obviously love Smallville. It's apparent as we're talking about it today. But yeah, Michael Rosenbaum is a really cool guy. At the time as well, I did ask him, I'm like, yo, are you going to play Lex Luthor again? And he kind of teased me and said, ooh, I can't answer that one. And I was really hoping that James Gunn, because they're good friends for context, James Gunn and Mike Rosenbaum. I'm like, will James Gunn cast him again? I hope he does. He didn't, unfortunately. We have a new Lex Luthor, but we're not discussing that today. But yeah, the Clark and Lex dynamic is something that was told so well in this show to the point where I'm not going to discuss it too much currently because we do have some videos for that later on. So moving on to another, oh man, okay, let's just like regain. I can't be like, you know, but we do have Kristen Krug who played Lana Lang in the show, her on the right there. I'm gonna be honest with you, you know, like back in the day when I was like, you know, when I was like younger, I loved that girl so much. Oh my God. I thought she was like the model girl. I'm like, dude, like this is peak human evolution right here. And I thought their on-screen dynamic was so well because Clark was chasing her. And I'm like, damn, Clark, like if I can't get her, you can't get her either. Like, I'm sorry. But all jokes aside, I thought she was really well in the role. And like I haven't seen much of her outside of Smallville, but I think I'm okay with that. You know, I thought she was really good in Smallville. I don't know why they never made more like Lana Lang merch, and I'm not too familiar with the character of Lana Lang outside of Smallville. I personally like Lana Lang a lot more than I like Lois Lane. And yeah, their names are too similar too. It's like, goddamn. But back to Kristen, I did really enjoy her take on Smallville. I thought that, you know, I feel like in superhero media, a lot of like the crushes of the heroes, like I can't co-sign them, you know, like for example, like Mary Jane Watson is never really like good to Peter Parker, if we're gonna be honest. Like it's 50-50, but like this adaptation for like I guess the superhero's crush I thought was really well. And again, it's just I also had the biggest crush on her. So some people like to call me a superhero, and I'm like, yeah, you could be my Lana Lang, but I kind of already have one in my eyes, and that is Kristen Krug herself. But we're gonna keep that there. But yeah, I thought her adaptation was really good. We'll dive into her a bit more later on to the show as well. But some other notable characters include Sam Jones III. He played Pete Ross, and then Allison Mack played Chloe Sullivan. Now these are actually original characters made for this show, and they were Clark Kent's, I guess, like high school friends. It was interesting too because like like their dynamic was so funny on air, or I guess on screen, sorry, because like they were just like, you know, had like that good banter. And like, you know, me and my boy Alex would always roast Pete's hairline. I'm not gonna hold you, like I don't know if that was like a 2000s thing, but like his barber was not doing it, unfortunately, but still my guy. And yeah, it was cool though because like I mentioned, when I was younger watching this, I was close to their age, even though they do not look like teenagers. I was close enough to their age to like relate to what was going on. It was cool too because like they were always in the newsroom because Chloe would write for the newspaper, and like she would try and like uncover the mysteries of Smallville. And it was cool because like a lot of her cases that she'd be on file for, yeah, she just would get saved by Clark Kent at the end. So I thought it was pretty funny whenever she'd write a story and it's like, what happened here? And it's just Clark Kent saving the day as always. So that was another reason why I kind of liked their dynamic, because it always kept her guessing and the character development was there. Because it's like, why are my stories not fabricating? And well, it's because Clark Kent is just saving the day. So I thought that was good. Switching over to, I guess, one of the more eerie characters. I feel like if you like this character, I don't know if that says good things about you or bad things about you, but it definitely says something, as we did have John Glover, who played Lionel Luthor, Lex Luthor's father. Now, traditionally, Lex Luthor is always a bad guy. Like I said, at this point in time, he's more of a good guy, to be honest. Like he has done nothing wrong. But Lionel Luthor was like his father that we come to find out why, but just really resented him. So he shipped him off to Smallville. He's like, look, you could go work there. You're not working in Metropolis with me anymore. And Lex would always just fight for literally just his love and compassion. And he says those words too. He's like, all I ever wanted was for you to love me. And it was a cool dynamic because you have Lex Luthor, who on paper has everything in the world. He obviously has a rich dad. His dad has one of the most successful companies in the land with Luthor Corp. Because at this time it's Luthor Corp. It's not even Lex Corp yet, obviously. But yeah, and it was cool to see that dynamic of just this powerful character just trying to, I guess, get love and compassion. Like, he didn't really care about the cars, the jets, the business. He just wanted to be by his father's side running the business. He didn't want to get shipped out and felt like an afterburner, or I guess a thought on the afterburner. But their dynamic was so good. I feel like you could do a whole episode of Screenshot on just those two. And like, that's not even an exaggeration, to be honest. Like, they're really good. And I think that he's another character where I don't really think I've seen another adaptation of Lionel Luthor. Granted, I read a lot of DC comics, but it's mainly Batman. So if Lionel Luthor has been in Superman comics, chances are I haven't read them, just to be blunt. Growing up, I wasn't even a huge Superman fan. I was a Smallville fan. I didn't really like Superman movies as much as I like the Batman stuff. So with that being said, to me, like, John Glover was perfect as Lionel Luthor because there's not really much of a sample size. But sticking to, I guess, the parents, we had John Schneider playing Jonathan Kent and Annette O'Toole playing Martha Kent. So this was on my opinion, this was a really good casting to be the Kents. I thought their dynamic on screen, all three of them, were what you would expect from a couple that have a teenage son. You know, Clark was obviously rebellious at times. He wanted to go play football, wanted to like run track, but it's like, no, you can't do that. You're going to hurt someone. And it was like, you belong on the farm. And like, it really kind of stunted his growth. And obviously he'd lash out, but he didn't really understand that they just did that to help him and protect him. And it would be like interesting when Clark would be in positions where it's like, well, I want to do this because I want to make my family proud, but the family doesn't even want him to be in those positions to begin with. And it was a cool dynamic because I feel like every teenager has their like rebellious teen phase, and it was cool to see Superman himself have that phase. So that was really cool. Now, like, going into, I guess, what the early seasons were all about. What's really cool about it, first of all, is that the shows that followed after, you really see inspiration from. So just diving into it, the early seasons of Smallville, it follows a meteor shower, and that's kind of how Clark Kent gets to Earth. But not only does Clark Kent arrive, it also gives other people powers too. So they followed what they called back in the day the Freak a Week format. And it was every week was like a new, I will call it a metahuman because that's what they're called in DC, I should say. So every week was a new metahuman that had some motive, that just wanted to, you know, be a criminal, steal money, just something like that. Corny teenage or 2000 stuff, I should say. But what was cool about it is that if you watch the Freak a Weeks in Smallville, I think they're told really well. And I'm not saying that just to like glaze and say, oh my God, it's amazing. I say that in comparison to the shows that followed. If you watch The Flash or even Supergirl from the 2010s, they follow the same format. And I think Supergirl specifically is like a worse version of Smallville because of that. And I don't want to draw, like, I guess, unfair comparisons because, again, I think this is the peak. So anything else is just going to be worse. But when you see the precedent that it sets, you could see the inspiration that the other shows that followed tried to get to it. And I really did enjoy that. But yeah, the Freak Week was pretty cool because as like a young kid, it kept you guessing. It's like, okay, who's going to debut next week? Who are we going to see? Who am I going to know that's going to be on air next week? So it was definitely a cool format and not one that DC fans are not familiar with. Now, spinning back to the Clark and Lex dynamic, I was when I was prepping this episode, I was like, you know what? Let me just describe it. I was writing. I'm like, you know what? This is not doing it justice. I did want to grab some clips. So we're going to take a look at some clips of Clark and Lex from Smallville. And I do want to have a discussion on some of these, I guess, positions that they'd be in. So first clip is one of their first meetups, and we'll see what happened there. So we'll roll that clip, and then we'll have a discussion about that.
The maniac who was driving that car?
That would be me. Lex Luthor.
Very much.
Thanks for saving my life.
I'm sure you would have done the same thing.
You got quite an extraordinary boy there, Mr. Kent. If there's any way I could repay you.
Drive slower.
Yes, so this is going back to what I said earlier about the crime that was committed. So Lex Luthor was recklessly driving and he hits Clark Kent and they go off a bridge. And you saw the damage that was with that car. So Clark obviously doesn't get affected. Because he's, Kryptonian and he has all the powers. So he saves Lex Luthor. And that is like their first like whole interaction. And it's so cool because from the start, he's just indebted to not just Clark, specifically Clark, but to the whole Kent family, including Jonathan and Martha. And that scene alone kind of sets the precedent for the first couple seasons. We have Clark Kent saying, nah, don't worry, Lex. I know you would do the same thing for me. But you have Jonathan Kent being skeptical. And Lex saying, hey, how can I repay you? I could do anything in the world. I have all the money. Whatever you want, I could do it. And all Jonathan has to say is drive slower. And I think that chase of validation is such a recurring theme in the Clark Kent, Lex Luthor dynamic in the show. And it's interesting because you see Lex with his own trauma, with his own family, and he's not necessarily trying to buy another family, but to go from Lionel Luthor, who's top tier, like I'm talking this guy is like top 1% in the world, to Jonathan Kent, who owns a farm. The fact that both fathers have the same reaction to Lex, it does hit him, So I think that alone was such a good scene to start off that relationship and just to keep it going. They would remain friends. Obviously Jonathan Kent didn't love that, but Lex Luthor was kind of like that older brother figure that Clark never had. And Lex Luthor also didn't have any brothers either. So it was cool to see them have that, not just friendship, but like that brothers dynamic. And I think that's really showcased in the next clip that we have coming up here.
Now she's free tomorrow night. Hey, Clark. This is the perfect time for you to ask around.
She's got a boyfriend, Lex.
A high school boyfriend isn't a husband. He's an obstacle. Now, I bet if you ask Lana to go with you to the Radiohead concert in Metropolis tomorrow, she'll say yes.
If she says yes,
I'll give you the tickets.
why are you doing this?
You're like the younger brother I never had. I figure someone should benefit from my experience.
You can't just ask her out.
The heart.
Yeah, and I absolutely love that scene because, Clark Kent he's just out here having a biggest crush on Lana, and Lana has a boyfriend. He's like, this is not going to work. But Lex is so persistent. He actually said to Lana before that scene, you're dating the wrong guy. And then make sure that Lana's boyfriend is busy so Clark could do this. Granted, on paper, like, I'm not going to sit here and say that I would do the same thing. On the record, I would never condone that. But, like, I thought that was awesome. This guy had a friend that was willing to do anything for him after that whole accident. It went from, like, can I buy you a car? Can I take you to Metropolis? To, you know what? I know you really like that girl. I'm going to do what I can to get you that girl. And whether that works or not in that specific scene is, you guys can watch the show, but, like, just busts out the Radiohead tickets. I'll give you the tickets. It's, like, amazing, man. So they have such a good dynamic. And I think one thing about the show, shout out to 21 Savage. It's like loyalty versus love. 21 said, like, he'd rather have loyalty than love because love don't really mean anything. And, love is just a feeling where you could still, like, stab someone in the back. But, like, with the loyalty, that it's like, you guys are locked in, you're gang, you're gang. So what I thought was cool is that even though Clark Kent was the one getting all, like, the love and the loyalty and this and that, he was still able to reciprocate that in different parts. And this next scene that we're going to see is probably my favorite scene in the whole show, especially for these two characters, because this scene to me really epitomizes them as not just like a friendship, but as a brotherhood. So we'll roll that now and see what happened there.
Lex,
Where are you going?
find Morgan Edge and prove I'm not crazy.
Lex.
You're either with me or against me, Clark. Choose right now. Clark.
Man, that scene just gives me chills every single time. I've probably posted that scene on my private story, no word of a lie, 10 times. That's probably an understatement. So for some context too, so at this point in time, the whole world is against Lex Luthor because Lex Luthor is going through this thing with this businessman named Morgan Edge. And pretty much everyone is like, Lex, you're delusional. That's not true. That's not happening. To the point where he confides in the Kents and they also say what everyone else is saying. Dude, you're crazy. It's not happening. And Clark even knows that too. He's like, my parents are against this. My friends are against this. I might be against this as well. But when Lex Luthor says, look, I'm going to prove that I'm not crazy. You're either with me or against me. Choose right now. This guy prees his parents and then goes with his boy. And that's how you know that they weren't just friends. They were literally brothers at the time. And it's just like, it's emotional because you kind of live and die for those kind of friendships. You know, everyone might have like, you know, that distant cousin that they see once a year, or like, you know, that aunt that doesn't come to all the family functions, or like that uncle that's only there to one time every 5 years. But like that best friend that you have that you see all the time, like that relationship is different. That bond will never be broken. And I think the loyalty that was displayed in that scene alone really just like epitomizes what it means to have a friend that's more than just a friend. So I really enjoy that scene. They were really brothers in the first couple seasons. Their dynamic obviously shifts towards the back end of Smallville, but like I kind of opened off with, we weren't going to get too deep into, I guess, like seasons 5, 6 and beyond. It was more or less just like the early seasons, and I just think that like that scene just epitomizes them in these seasons. Shifting gears now, because again we'll touch upon Lex again, but shifting gears to if we can, I would love to bring up that photo again of Lana Lang and Clark Kent. So I was saying to Evan off air that the scene I wanted to bring up about these two was actually like a little funny 2000s AMV that not someone made, but that was just in the show. So as many 2000 shows and even shows today still like to do, they like to use songs at the end of it. So one of my favorite songs that they used at the end of one of their episodes, was it's called Wherever You Will Go by The Calling. It's such a beautiful song, and it just, I don't know, that song just does something to me. Like, it actually just hits every time. And I actually got introduced to this song in Smallville. So quick dynamic here. If we come back to me, actually, I could show you guys this. So we see this pop, and it's with the S. So that scene where he has that necklace, it's a kryptonite necklace. And obviously, if you know anything about Superman, then you know that kryptonite is his weakness. So he gets so weak by the kryptonite, and obviously, he can't do anything. But that's actually Lana's necklace that her boyfriend stole from her and put it over Clark, and then they like jump him. So it's now a situation of like Lana and her boyfriend Whitney, who's ops, by the way. I do not like Whitney unless it's Houston. Whitney from Smallville, bro, that guy was ops. Word to Izza, bro, like no. So that being said, he's like, well, I don't know what happened to the necklace. It's just a dumb necklace. Like, who cares? But it meant more to her than that. And Clark knew that. So pretty much in this scene, you hear Wherever You Will Go play. And Clark, he's able to hold the necklace briefly. And he puts it around Lana's, her door handle, and then knocks on the door and runs. And then Lana like runs to the door. It's late at night, and then she sees the necklace, and like she just like gets so happy. And then you see Clark from a distance, kind of like smiling, but then like it kind of fades to just sadness. And it's like, damn, that's the life that I could have had if I just wasn't, afraid of her. Because he's not really afraid of her. It's just he can't approach her because she always has that necklace. And I thought that symbolism was really good. But yeah, so I did touch upon it. But one thing about Smallville that I do enjoy, especially the early seasons, is that it's such a 2000 show. Whether it's like, the like grown adults playing teenagers in high school, or like the 2000s rock songs just for no reason. I guess even just the screenplay, like it's such a 2000 show that like for me, when I watch it, even if I were to put it on today or like watch those clips now, I don't think I'm 21. Like I think I'm back in those days when I would watch it as a kid, and then when I would rewatch it in middle school with my brothers. My brothers, they're 2007, so like obviously I didn't watch with them in the 2000s. They were little, but once they got older, we even would rewatch it, and like that would be our thing. We'd come home from I guess I always say middle school. It's really elementary school, but like middle school sounds cooler. So we'd come home from middle school, and then after that we just put it on the TV and we just binge it. They got to the point where like they would watch it without me, I'd watch it without them, sorry. And we would just have discussions. And like that's one of the first shows that I can remember, I guess, us watching not with my dad. My dad would put us on like all the shows and movies, the animes, all that stuff. But we actually watched this at my mom's house more than at my dad's house. So this was like one of those shows where we kind of like had it where it was just us three. My mom wouldn't watch it. My grandparents wouldn't watch it with us. We would just watch it. And like that's one thing too about it, is that like you can't really put a price on memories like that. You could watch Smallville and think, oh dude, you're just lying. This is like the worst show ever. This show just means something to me more than just quality of show. But like I said, I do still think it is like the best superhero media that they've done in terms of a TV show. But sentimentally though, it does mean a lot to me. So now, so we're gonna look now, I guess, at some storylines that I guess stick out to me and still hold up to this day. I'm not gonna say that these are the best storylines in the show. These are just some that I had picked out. So I teased upon it earlier, but the whole Lex versus Jonathan dynamic was really cool. And I don't mean cool as in like it was fun to watch. It was an emotional watch because, like I said, Lex didn't really have a loving father. We know the reasons why later on, but again, we're not diving in that far today. But anyways, didn't have a loving father, confides in the Kents, and all he did was try and win over Mr. Kent's approval. And one scene that it really hits home. So pretty much Martha Kent, so Jonathan's wife, she gets a job working at Luthor Corp in Metropolis. So she misses their anniversary. And Clark is so sad about this. He's so depressed. And Lex is like, your mother's in Metropolis on a Sunday? Let me make some calls. And he gets a reservation for the Kents at the nicest restaurant in Metropolis, gets them a private jet to pull up to the Kent farm to bring Jonathan with a brand new suit. And Jonathan just disses the man. He says something like, I should have known you Luthors were behind this. You guys are not trustworthy. And then Clark presses the dad to be like, Dad, like, it's not fair. And then Lex interjects and goes, you know what? Like, from the day we met, I've just tried to win over your trust, but it's done. It's over. And he just lashes out. And then Jonathan presses his son. He's like, it's not up on you to fix everything. And I'm like, damn, like Clark was in a position where despite him being the most powerful person in the world, he could not like save his, I guess, parents' anniversary. I was going to say marriage, but they don't get divorced. So I guess their anniversary. And it was cool too, because like seeing Lex Luthor finally have enough, that was one of our first, I guess, teases at Lex Luthor being the villain of the story, as Michael Rosenbaum wrote on that pod. Not trying to flex, but he did. But in all seriousness though, that dynamic is something that I don't think DC have really retold. I think when you look at the dynamic of Barry Allen and Joe West in The Flash, Joe West is obviously Barry's, like, I'm going to call him his father figure, even though Barry, we know what happens in that story, but he raised him. And I don't think Barry he didn't really go for that approval of someone else to be the new father. It was kind of opposite. It was kind of Joe trying to win over that approval. But it was cool to see someone enter life and his main goal was just to get that approval. And it wasn't cool to see it being shut down, but the way they told the story was excellent. It was like, as they would say, like peak cinema. It was good. And I think a lot of shows that are superhero themed kind of struggle to find that, I guess, realness to it. And I get it. Superheroes, we don't all have powers. Mine haven't kicked in yet personally. Like, my powers are coming. They're just not here yet. But we all don't have powers. So when you watch a show about Superman, it's like, how can you relate to this? And I think the directors kind of took that question and just hit it out of the park. When you watch like The Flash or Arrow or even like the Marvel shows like WandaVision or even Falcon and Winter Soldier, it's like, where's the relatability? And I sometimes struggle to find that when I'm watching superhero shows, but again, I'm not a hero. But with Smallville, though, they kind of hit a lot of boxes for that. So that is one thing that I did really enjoy. And that's kind of going to segue to the next part of, in a way, relatability, but, from a different lens, was Clark's struggles as a teenager developing with his powers. So Clark doesn't have his powers right from birth. As he gets older, he kind of like develops them the same way, like we would hit puberty. So like as his body's changing, he's not only like, I guess, going through like what we would go through with puberty, he's just getting his like heat vision, his x-ray vision, his cold breath, his super strength. And it was cool to see that because for kids in the 2000s that are going through stuff like that, it's like, well, how can Superman tell this to us? And how can Superman relate this to us? Well, let's show you guys Superman struggling just growing up. He can't avoid this. He's going to grow up the same way kids are going to grow up. What can we do to make this relatable? And I thought, again, they hit that out of the park. I think one thing, too, about it with, I guess, the realness that they showed, for 2000s graphics, the way they were able to portray Clark's powers, I don't think looked goofy at all. I think even in comparison to latter stages of Arrow and Flash and Supergirl, I still think it looks better. And like, I don't know if that says more about Smallville or the new CW shows, but well, that's a discussion for another day. But yeah, I just really enjoyed those two dynamics on storylines, on a relatable level, because you don't need to be a fan of superheroes to enjoy those storylines. And those storylines still hold up to this day because they're still relevant to this day. And I thought that it was just aged perfectly. It was excellent. Now, the final, actually, no, there's a couple more I do want to talk about, but the main one I want to dive into is the iconic red kryptonite saga. Now, we do have a photo of that, And I just love this photo so much because you got this guy Clark Kent styling and profiling in the glasses. He has a red kryptonite ring on, and what that does is that just like boosts your confidence. That gives you like the IDGAF attitude. You know, I can't cuss on air obviously, so that's just what we get. You know, got that acronym. It's like yeah, honestly, like, cause I can't really be funny like that, I'm gonna leave it at that. But like, yeah, Clark pretty much gets into an argument with his parents and everyone. He puts on this ring, gets a leather jacket, a new motorcycle, which I'm pretty sure he steals, and just goes to Metropolis, gets a flat, steals everything, and is just clubbing, partying. And it's like, it was cool because he wasn't actually doing it to, I guess, rebel or cause any harm. He was just living life. When Lana Lang pulled up, like the girl that he loves, a girl that I love too, he was so happy to see her. He's like, oh my God, Lana, let's run it. Like, let's go. And like Lana wasn't really feeling it. And he's like, what's going on? Like, I thought you were here for me. I'm so excited. I'm breaking out of my shell. I have feelings for you. Let's do it. And she was like, Clark, you're not being you. But it's like, for him, he's finally doing the opposite of what he was doing before, and it's still not enough. And that's another underlying story that I think a lot of people could relate to. I think, like, I even sometimes find myself asking myself, am I good enough? Did I do this right? If I make a decision that I think is going to benefit me, but like a friend or family member gets upset, it's like, damn, am I just worthless? Like, did I mess it up that badly? So I think that was another example of that, where he said, enough's enough. I'm going to fully embrace who I am. Red kryptonite, let's do it. And they still weren't satisfied. So again, I thought that was a great storyline. Goodbye, gang. Yes. Shout out Chick Chatter, bro. Gotta watch the show every week. You know the vibes. But yeah, so just that being said, I loved the Red Kryptonite saga. And it's just one of those stories that doesn't really get touched upon a lot in modern DC, especially in the last 15-ish years, not including Smallville. You don't really see Red Kryptonite anymore. And, I apologize. That is my clock in, which I will do after. Anywho, you could say that I'm rocking my glasses today because of Clark Kent. To be so blunt, when I got that photo, I'm like, you know what, I'm a style like him. So there you go on that end. Yeah, so just before we move on, some other stories that I do want to mention. So I briefly mentioned it, but you find out more reasons why Lex and his father have that dynamic, and just his past trauma. You really see it fleshed out from when he was just a little boy to like a early teenager, all that stuff. So that was a really good storyline. I like highly recommend that one. That's why I'm not going to dive into it too much, because it just shows a different side of the character that I didn't think anyone really knew. Pete, who I mentioned earlier, once he finds out Clark is Superman, he just gets targeted by not like bullies. I'm talking like government officials and FBI people that had suspicions. So that's how they write him off the show. He's like, look, man, I got to do me. Like, this is not on you. I really want to know. You trust me through secret, and I just can't handle it. So I'm sorry, but I can't be here. So yeah, that was really sad. Chloe Sullivan, who I did mention earlier, she eventually gets a job writing for Lionel Luthor, and her main thing is to research the Kent, specifically Clark Kent. And because she's a journalist, she no holds barred and kind of turned on Clark there. That was a good storyline as well. Sorry, I'm just looking at these notes. Final one that kind of hit home. Spoiler alert, by the way. If you haven't seen Smallville, I'm going to reveal a major death. So up and away. All right, you're still here. Yeah, so Alana Lang unfortunately passes away. It was a really sad scene. Pretty much, she was just driving. She was like frantically leaving Lex Luthor, pouring rain, and like she didn't see the car. It was a Derek Shepherd death, okay? Like, why does she have to die the same way Derek Shepherd died? It's criminal. Why do they write characters like that? I'll never understand it. You're just driving in the rain and then boom, taken out by a truck. Like, come on, bruh. Give her an illness or something. I could live with that. Not no truck from out of nowhere like it's an RKO in the WWE, bro. I was actually so pressed when they killed Lana Lang. But that's it though. Let me regain. But yeah, so that was a really good storyline though, because you see the death of Lana, and it was good to see the character development after that. So it was really sad. I low-key cried. I'm not even saying that to be funny. That's just my honest take there. Anyways, okay, cool. So moving into the latter part of this episode today. So like I mentioned, we covered just the overviews of the first couple seasons of Smallville, scenes that I like, everything that I guess still remember and reminisce of to this day. Now I do want to look at the later seasons of Smallville, because one thing about this show that it did, And what's kind of funny is that we get kind of teased with it here. We see the Green Arrow. And no, this is not Oliver Queen. This was a Green Arrow that was actually played by Justin Hartley, which we'll get into because they actually did bring in the Justice Society, or at least teased it. They wanted it. Such a great action shot. Nothing screams 2000s more than this. We had Aquaman, Cyborg, Green Arrow, and I believe that is... Oh, yeah, that's Impulse. So we do get Impulse in this as well. And yeah, so Impulse, Green Arrow, Superman, Aquaman, and Cyborg. What was so cool about Impulse, real quick, is that when he made his appearance, Impulse used he used fake names, of the other characters that had super speed. So he had a fake idea of Wally West, Barry Allen, and it was really cool. But yeah, so this was really cool because like, why is this happening in a 2000 show on the CW? And like, look at that awesome action shot. I was like, dude, like, this is amazing. Unfortunately, well, we know it wasn't going to happen, but they do propose a team, obviously, and Clark does not join it. The rest of them, you know, they periodically come back, but the one that kind of stuck with the show was Green Arrow. Justin Hartley, not because his name is Justin, but is one of my favorite actors, period. He was in This Is Us as well, which is a great show. He's also doing a show called Tracker, which is on season 2. So Justin Hartley, to me, kind of made his name in that show. And yeah, as far as more characters that they got, don't have photos of them, but we do have, well, have a Funko Pop. Lois Lane is in the show, played by Erica Durance, who is Canadian. Again, nothing against Erica Durance or Lois Lane. I just personally like Lana Lang a lot better. They also brought in Kara Zor-El, or Zor-El, I should say. And surprisingly, not only was just Black Canary in the show as well to go with Green Arrow, they also brought in Zatanna. Now, Zatanna looks kind of goofy in the show. I didn't want to get a photo, but what? Zatanna, like, one of the strongest characters. And honestly, Zatanna at her peak could probably put up a good fight against Superman because Superman doesn't do well against magic. But, like, are we taking in these names? Like, Black Canary, Zatanna, Impulse, Kara Zor-El, so Supergirl, Lois Lane, Green Arrow, Cyborg, Aquaman, and so much more. Jor-El was also in this, if I didn't mention that already. So yeah, there's just so many characters that they were able to bring in. And I think we even had Darkseid at the end, or Darkseid, however you want to say it. But yeah, he was in it as well. And I think too, like, when you see what I guess superhero media is now, it's all about those crossovers. When that's what makes all the money, you know, with Marvel, when they cross over the Spider-Man people, when they crossed into the Spider-Verse, when they crossed over the Avengers in 2012 and they gave us the Avengers movie, it's like when you see heroes team up or characters team up, that's what you want to see. Even with the Suicide Squad, something that's not quite on the scale as that, but that is still characters teaming up for a one-off. And I think it was so cool to see Smallville kind of do that for superheroes. Because, again, this is like a show from the 2000s. All of the DCEU stuff that we have in the 2010s and today, that's way later than Smallville. Even the Dark Knight trilogy with Nolan, we didn't get crossovers. And then it finally took us to, Batman v Superman in 2013. Like, come on, yo. Smallville was really ahead of the curve. And I think that's just one thing that, like, is so underrated. Also, Dr. Fate was in this. It's just baffling, the cast that they had for this show at one point. Don't have a photo of him, but yeah, he was also in the show. Oh man, it's so, like, it's sad that what I just read, like, I'll read it just now, but like, the show did have 10 seasons. I did mention that, and it is to this day the longest DC and I believe just superhero show period at 20 episodes, at 217 episodes. And I say that's sad, and I like hate to read that, because it just shows that that media kind of peaked. And I'm not saying that again to glaze. It's just the honest truth. You know, like when I'm looking at the script and I'm reading that Smallville, which came out in 2001, ended in 2011, is still the longest running. Like, we had the blueprint and we've yet to replicate it. The Flash, you could argue, was the closest one. Because I think Arrow as a whole, I don't think it compares to Smallville, and I love Arrow. But I would never like choose any season of Arrow over any season of Smallville. Like, if you go like season 1 for 1, 2 for 2, and so on and so forth. The Flash could go band for band. The first 3 seasons of Flash put up against the first 3 seasons of Smallville. That's a debate. Shout out Alex, and you're gonna watch this. I don't think I've ever given you this take. That's superheroes Messi versus Ronaldo right there. We'll say that Smallville is Ronaldo because, you know, Sue, but that's the honest to God truth. But like, other than the Flash, I don't think any show really can do that with Smallville. They can't really put up their dukes and say, okay, cool, this is what we have. This is it. And then even too, like in modern media with Marvel, dude, Marvel's dropped 8 episode series and call it like the greatest thing ever. I would not choose any of the Marvel series over Smallville. And I'm not saying that just to like, because again, it's my like show. WandaVision, I wouldn't choose like Hawkeye, but I wouldn't choose the Captain America show either. A good shout from Marvel is Moon Knight, but no, I still wouldn't. But yeah, like I just think that it's bittersweet to say that, because obviously, like you're prideful for what you like, and like I'm happy that my favorite show is the best one. It's like being a Tom Brady fan. Like, oh my god, I like Tom Brady, he's the best. But it's like, damn, bro, like did we really peak? Like we're never gonna get better than this. Ironically, Tom Brady and Smallville started in 2001. I guess, yeah, that was a great analogy by myself, yo. But I just think that it's bittersweet though to say that, because when are we gonna get the next Smallville? We might never get it, and I don't think that's necessarily a good thing for fans of superhero media. I think branching out of Marvel and DC, I think The Boys is like another show that I kind of put on that pedestal of like, okay, put this against like any Marvel show and I'm taking The Boys. I'm not going to include Invincible because Invincible is animated the same way I'm not going to include like any Batman animated shows when I make this take. This is purely live action. So I think The Boys, unfortunately, it's going to be over next season. And I think just doing like quick math, 8 times 5 is what? Is that 4? No? What's 8 times 5? It's 45, yeah? 40? Oh, so I was right. It's 40. Okay. I didn't go to school for math. It's going to have 40 episodes when it's done. Smallville season 1 and 2 is longer than 40 episodes. So again, The Boys is probably number 2, and that is like a fraction of 217 episodes. So like I said, maybe this form of media is something that won't be replicated because you shouldn't, but because you can't. And I just don't think you could give a show 217 episodes today and it be solid up until the end, because I really think it's solid up until the end. With that being said, how does it end? Well, in my opinion, you get one of just the best closing shots in superhero history, because Clark Kent finally teases us and dons that iconic Superman suit at the top of his building there, and like it's so like it's so iconic. Let's just call it iconic. And I think if you like DC and you haven't seen Smallville, you could still appreciate this frame. This is the final shot of Smallville, is this. And he's finally ripping off that suit. It's the iconic theme that's playing in the background, and he just, bam, and there it is. And I still think it's awesome that they made like a Funko Pop of that too. One thing that it's really cool about this line that I brought in today is that you have like a moment from the very start being this pop here, and then a moment from the very end being this pop. And I think it's so cool. But yeah, it's the longest running superhero show, and I think it's going to stay like that probably forever, not including animated, because animated you could probably get something to eclipse that if something hasn't already. And yeah, before we wrap it up, I did tease at the start that I did want to talk briefly about what Smallville is kind of doing today and its impact. Well, the CW Arrowverse that was airing in the 2010s was heavily influenced by Smallville, and they went and did I think it was Crisis on Infinite Earths, Crisis on Earth X. I kind of stopped watching at this time because it just wasn't good. I love the Arrowverse, but it fell off. But there was a Smallville cameo. Lex Luthor kind of has the Book of Truth there, and he goes to all the dimensions to try and kill Superman, and the Arrowverse's Lex Luthor pulls up on Tom Welling. So I thought that was cool. They played the intro as well. They played the iconic song, and yeah, they just had a Lex Luthor Clark Kent conversation. It was good. And I think too, right, it wasn't even just fan service, because it made sense to what the plot was, but it was good fan service. It was fan service that I could get behind, that I could say, okay, cool, this is good, this is what we want, and it just worked. I think before we wrap it up here, just like what the show really means to me is that it's not only just very sentimental, but it is quality. I do think if you're a superhero fan and if you're willing to give it the time, it will be one of, if not the best watches for a superhero show you could ever do. I think if you've already seen The Boys, you'll probably say The Boys is better, and that's just my honest take. But that's because you're going to compare, I guess, 32 episodes to 217. And I think something that is 217 episodes long has a lot of room to fail, and I just don't think Smallville does. And I know that might be a hot take. I know that might be some like, oh my God, you're saying that. Nah, man, like it's the longest running show for a reason, because it didn't really need to get canceled. It sucks that it did, but looking back on it, 10 solid seasons doesn't get much better than that. And yeah, this show just means a lot to me personally, like you guys heard with my memories with it. I have the whole Funko Pop line, and it's amazing. So with it being the 23rd anniversary of it a couple days ago, I thought it was the perfect time to talk about it, because I don't think we've ever done a full Smallville episode. I have teased it, but I'm happy that we finally got that one in the books. It really meant a lot to me. I really enjoyed this episode, really looked forward to it for weeks now as I was prepping it. It took a lot of prep to do, and I hope you guys enjoyed watching and listening to it, as yeah, I just really enjoyed giving this one to you guys. Before we close it off, do have some shout outs. So thank you so much to my cousin Aria. She made that beautiful logo at the start, that screen chat on the Clark Kent barn right there. It was really cool. We'll see it again momentarily. Alex, I gave you a shout out too. You were my first friend that ever knew about this show. I remember one day, I think we were in Mr. Pryor's class maybe, or maybe we were younger, but I said to you, yeah, man, I was watching Smallville. You're like, oh, you're only watching that now? I was like, yo, my bad, bro. I'm rewatching. You're like, there you go. So we still talk about that show to this day. Shout out Costa as well. I saw you a couple weeks ago, and we had a whole talk. It went from the WWE to just Arrowverse, and then we're talking about Superman and Lois, and then we again still managed to get back to Smallville. That really just shows, like, you know, we could talk about the modern shows, and it could still all come back to this, as it's just a staple. And finally, I'll clip this for you. Shout out to you, Amelia. You love Smallville. I think you just really like Tom Welling, but you do love the show. And I had to give you a shout out. You're like, yo, let me know when you're doing this one. We always talk about Smallville whenever I post it on the story. It, again, mainly Tom Welling, but I know you have seen the show. So shout out to you. Appreciate all the support that you give me. So yeah, you're a goat for that. You already know the vibes. And yeah, thank you once again to Evan and Kent behind the scenes. You guys take this whole show for me. So thank you guys so much. Would not be possible without you guys. And yeah, once again, that's going to be it for us today. My name is Justin. Thank you guys so much for watching. Don't forget you follow us on social media at DCSA Media Hub. This was Screen Chat's Smallville take. And playing out, here's a surprise. Here is the Smallville intro live from the Media Hub on RiotRadio.ca.